Hello, welcome to Screen Talk with yours truly, Nomfanelo. So the other day, I saw this article online that came out over a week ago that essentially said that the CEO of Cineplex, which is essentially the largest theater chain in Canada. So the CEO essentially said that Canadian movies essentially underperformed at the box office because of their quality. And this is the CEO of Cineplex, Ellis Jacob. So before I get into his comments, I do want to mention the report from Telefilm that's mentioned in this article. So I managed to find it on their website. I'll link the PDF in the description if you want to take a look at it. So essentially, it's a review of Canadian movie-going distribution for last year. So they mentioned that total box office revenue in Canada was 836.9 million, which was up 0.2%. But Canadian films specifically, they earned about 13.9 million versus 23.5 million in 2024, which was a 40.9% decline. They mentioned for French language films were about 11.3 million, while for English language films were 2.7 million. And in terms of market share for Canadian films, we're at 1.7 of box office revenue, which was down, they say more than 1% compared to 2.8% market share in 2024. I'm going to skip that one. And then, in terms of theatrical releases, 966 films came out in Canada in 2025, which was up compared to 953 films in 2024. Canadian films were about 139 in 2025, while movies outside of Canada were about 827. Yeah, interesting. And then and then they shared here the top three Canadian films in terms of highest grossing films. So there was Mentus, which is a comedy apparently. That made about over 2.6 million. And then second was Ma belle mère est une sorcière, which is apparently a children's film. That made about one over 1.1 million. And then third was Night of the Zoo Apocalypse, which is an action adventure. That made about over 1.1 million. Interesting. So I'll be honest with the movies I just mentioned, I have not heard of them myself. But I did see the universal language with that movie when that came out last year. Because I heard about that one when apparently was being considered for the international feature film category at the Oscars because it represented Canada. It did not get selected, I believe, but I believe was one of the finalists, if I'm not mistaken. It's a good movie. I recommend you guys check out that one. But yeah, this is quite sad though with this report. And then they mentioned here that of the films that were screened in Canada, Minecraft apparently stood out, with which that made close to 45 million in Canada, followed by Jurassic World Rebirth, which made 30 over 31 million, and then Superman with over 30.6 million. So yeah, this is a interesting report here. Again, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to check this report out. But yeah, that's quite sad to see here. So on to this main article. So apparently, Ellis Jacob, he said in an interview that, quote, it's all about the quality of the film and what the guests want and what our visitors want to see at the movie theater. I don't think it has to do with the fact that it's a Canadian film. Okay. And then apparently he says that audiences are willing to support Canadian productions, but many domestic films are not drawing large crowds. He says another challenge homegrown films face is attracting high profile talent, as many Canadian actors and filmmakers chase bigger paydays in US. He says, quote, if you're a Canadian star and you can make 500,000 a year or 5 million in Hollywood, what are you going to do? Interesting. And then he said that while Canadian films have lower visibility, their struggles aren't just a marketing program. He says the awareness is a little lower, but it's also the quality of the content. It's not bringing droves of people to theaters. Yeah, because when I read this, um, I disagree about the quality because we've seen time and time out that there's a lot of terrible movies that come out that do well at the box office, and we've seen good movies come out that did well at the box office, but then there's some that don't do well. And then also too, there's some terrible movies that don't do well at the box office. So I feel like the quality, at least in my opinion, is irrelevant. It's really more about the visibility of these movies. And then you could argue too the interest of the movies themselves. Because I imagine that regardless if the movie is Canadian or not, if people are interested in that movie, they'll check it out. So, what was it? Over a week ago, I saw the Canadian film Nirvana, the band, the show, the movie, which I did do a video on, so you could check that out. Apparently, that did well at the box office, and at the time of this recording, it's still playing in theaters. And essentially, I did not know any about the lore of the movie because I first heard about that when it screened at the Toronto Film Festival and all that stuff. And I became interested, and yeah, I really love that movie. I would say it's my favorite movie of the year so far, based on what I've seen. But yeah, so I think that the quality is not why people are not seeing Canadian movies in theaters. I think it's about the visibility issue, like the marketability. Because unless if you're really in the know of the Canadian movies that comes out, most people are not even aware that they're out in theaters. I don't know how like Canadian movies specifically are being marketed. I imagine like any other movie, but maybe a way smaller budget. I imagine, but yeah, I think it's the visibility issue. I would say. And then he goes on to say here that apparently, with Canadian filmmakers, should focus on stories that appeal to Canadians and could benefit from tapping into the country's diverse communities. Where he says, "quote I think we have to strengthen the kinds of films that we make, and we also then have to market to the clientele that we think want to see the movie." Again, I think everybody's like interest is different. I think as long as you have a good story is what matters. Typically with a lot of Canadian films and shows whatnot is done through um, a lot of government funding essentially because it's not like in the US where it's all about the studio system essentially, because here, and I'm sure in many other parts around the world, it's all about the government funding. There's also crowdfunding as well too, but I think those are like the main ways to get films made essentially. But I just don't agree with his take about quality because quality is subjective at the end of the day. Because just because, let's say, if I like something, does not mean someone else is going to like it. So there is that. And then before I wrap this video up, I do want to share a clip from this video that I saw the other day that was published by TIFF, where these select filmmakers based in Canada, they're talking about essentially all things like Canadian film and all that stuff, and they do share some few points about the Canadian audience on essentially how they'd rather watch like the American stuff versus Canadian stuff. So let's take a look.
Aversion from Canadian audiences, it seems, to watch Canadian films because maybe there's question about Canadian cinema.
Yeah.
People don't understand what it is, so their expectation is, I don't know if it's low or if it's just not there, but it seems like now having made one feature, it's like talking to distributors, everyone we spoke to was just like, yeah, like good luck, like it's gonna be really hard. That was the energy I felt like from many
Yeah.
conversations. And but ultimately I'm like, I think it's sad that there's this like aversion to wanting Canadians wanting to watch Canadian films. They only want to watch like American films, or
Hmm.
like we've spoken about a lot, this like issue with the francophone anglophone division, and the fact that your incredible film is potentially not going to play in like anglophone Canada is like bizarre, because Eric and I played like many of the same festivals with our
Yeah.
films.
So I'll just pause it right there. So I can only speak for myself. For me, like again, it doesn't matter like what country is based in, as long as this story interests me. Like I'll be where I'll be willing to go see it, whether it's in theaters or streaming, whatever the case may be. I'll leave a link for this video if you want to check out. There's some interesting points that they bring up during this discussion. But yeah, in terms of like the whole like what is Canadian cinema and all, and that debate, that could be a topic for another day. But I do think that with the audience, I imagine it's the story. Maybe too could be the actors involved or the filmmakers involved is why they'll be drawn to see a certain movie in theaters, I suppose. But I guess people have their different reasons, I suppose. But yeah, so that's essentially it, what I have to share here. So let me know your thoughts on all of this. So do you agree with the Cineplex CEO saying it's the quality of Canadian films or why they don't do well at the box office? And all that stuff. Let me know in the comments section. So if you want to support me, you can visit buymeacoffee.com/numpymaloy, where you could donate and also to look at exclusive posts there. On my YouTube channel, I do have community tabs. So if you do subscribe to the channel, feel free to leave comments there as long as it's under community guidelines. And if you want to follow me on social media, my links are in the description. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you on the next one.